right, so we are, a few weeks ago, I started this mini-series called The God Who Is Near, Our Father, Husband, Shepherd, and Head. Today, we're up to Shepherd. So, in preparation of that, I asked ChatGPT to give me some sheep jokes. I have been using, they're pretty bad. I'm only going to share two because some of them were just, I could share how bad they were. There were some that were like, oh my gosh, I can't even share that. It's so bad. But I've been using ChatGPT a lot more lately because sometimes I find it humorous to see what it thinks about something, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. Anyway, I decided to ask it for some jokes. So here's one here. What do you call a sheep covered in chocolate? Jack, you got an answer? No. A candy bar. Candy bar. Yeah. Keep in mind, this was one of the better ones. Yeah. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at AI. What kind of car do sheep drive? A Lamborghini. Yeah. Bum. That's a crash landing on that one. All right. The look. That's all I got for you. Praise the Lord. Okay. So today we're going to look at how God is our shepherd, what that means. Let me give you some historical background on shepherding. Shepherding is one of the world's most ancient professions. We have historical and archaeological evidence of shepherding going back as far as 3000 BC. We have the first shepherd that we know of in all of human history was Abel in Genesis 4, keeper of sheep. So basically going back to the very beginning, we have evidence of shepherding. In history, in the historical archaeological evidence, it looks like it started in Asia Minor, like Turkey area, and spread pretty much everywhere in the world from there. Cultures around the world have had shepherds, like almost every culture, every nation in the world has had sheep and shepherds at some point in their history. Even to the modern day, where you can go to places in Western U.S. and you can find shepherds leading their sheep. Now, the style of shepherding is different than it was back in the Bible times, but it still exists. Romania, where we served God as missionaries for a number of years, there are hundreds, thousands of shepherds in the hills, in the mountains of Romania. So you still find shepherds all over the world today. Religions, shepherds play an important role in lots of different religions throughout history. Christianity, Judaism, Islam, even some Eastern religions, and even in Greek and Roman mythology, there's stuff about shepherds, which I find it very interesting that shepherds are a common thing throughout human history, no matter what culture you're a part of or religion. Also, above all others, the Bible has this dominant theme of shepherds from beginning to end. Just a few examples here. So, Abraham and Eve. Adam and Eve's son, Abel, was a shepherd, as I mentioned before. Abraham and Lot both shepherded flocks of sheep. Isaac had flocks that he tended. Jacob was a shepherd. Joseph and his brothers, Jacob's sons, were all shepherds. Jacob's descendants, all the Israelites, were all shepherds, which is why they had to live separately in Egypt, because the Egyptians considered them unclean, so they lived in the land of Goshen. Moses was a shepherd for 40 years in Midian before he led the people out of Egypt. King David was a shepherd tending the sheep while his brothers went out to war. The prophet Amos was a shepherd. Kings of Israel were many times referred to as shepherds because they shepherded over, led Israel, cared for Israel. And the birth of Jesus was first announced by shepherds. Announced by angels, heard by shepherds. And I guess they probably were the second ones to announce it then. So there's this recurring theme of shepherds throughout the Bible and throughout human history, really. What was the life of a shepherd like? It was not easy. It wasn't glamorous. It was very difficult. They were exposed to the extremes of heat and cold, heat in the daytime, cold at night, extreme weather, storms, droughts. They had to put up with all of that. If the shepherd was far from his home, he would usually spend the night in a simple tent, like a canvas tent, temporary structure. If he was in his home, he could go back, bring the sheep closer to his home and sleep at home. But many shepherds would live out with the sheep in the wilderness and just spend the night in a tent. In Romania, that's what they did. Well, they didn't have tents in Romania. I guess some probably did, but more often than not, as you hike through the hills and the mountains in Romania, you'd encounter shepherds, like wooden structures, these really ramshackle huts that they would spend the summers in. Shepherds would eat whatever food that they could find in nature. They ate Egyptian figs that they found growing in the wilderness. There's evidence that they ate locusts and wild honey, palm sap. Not really the greatest cuisine, just whatever they could find out in the wilderness. Locusts, yeah, good stuff. They fought off wild animals. The Bible talks about King David fighting off lions and bears. Talks about wolves and leopards that the shepherds had to defend their flocks from. They defended their sheep from robbers, thieves that would come and steal the sheep. They had to protect them from, well, if a predator came, wolf, lion, bear, whatever, the shepherd had to be ready to defend his sheep and to kill the predator. Very hostile work environment. If you can imagine Walmart on Black Friday. Very similar, I would imagine. Sometimes, because the danger from predators and from thieves was so real, wealthier landlords would oftentimes build towers in the wilderness so that the shepherds could watch the sheep while posted up in the tower, and they could get a better lay of the land. And then if a pack of wolves come, or if they see some thieves coming along, they could run down and gather the sheep closer together. What would a shepherd do? Well, his basic day would go like this. In the morning, he wakes up and he leads his flock of sheep out of the sheepfold. The sheepfold was typically a cave that was in the wilderness. They wouldn't have fancy stables. They would take advantage of caves, which would be cooler and protected from the, cooler in the daytime, a little warmer at night, and protected from the elements. And so he would wake up in the morning, get out of his tent, go to the sheepfold, and lead the sheep out of the sheepfold, the cave most likely. He would go out in front of them, and he would call the sheep to follow after him. They would use, each shepherd had his own sheep's call that he would use, that the sheep would identify with him and would follow him. It was a guttural noise, like if you could think of yodeling, yodel-lady, whoo, but that was Switzerland with, was it cows? Like the cowboys of Switzerland? I don't know what you call those, the cow hands. But shepherds didn't yodel. Shepherds in Bible times had these guttural noises that the sheep would hear and go, oh, that's my shepherd. I know that grunt. That's my man over there. And they would come out and follow him, and the shepherd would walk in front, leading the sheep to places for pasture. They would try to find areas of greener grass, more nutritious grass, that they knew that the sheep would get the most benefit from. And after eating, then they would bring them to water. Ideally, sheep will get water at least once a day. Not always possible, but that was the ideal situation. So they bring them to food. After they eat, then they bring them to water. Either it would be streams of water, it could be springs of water. Also, it could be wells. In Israel, they would dig wells, and then where the water came up from the well, they would have troughs built into the well for the animals to drink from. And so you have like Moses watering the sheep in Midian when he met his wife, if I remember correct. Or was that somebody else? I think that was Moses, right? Yeah. All right. Good place to find a wife, I guess. So you go to the well, you water your sheep. After they've had their food, they've had their water, and now they're tired. And so typically the sheep would want to take a nap nearby to the water source, and the shepherd would take advantage of the time as well to kind of doze off a bit. Many times, in order to find the food and to find the water, they would be walking for hours at a time. Now, after they get the water, they take a little nap. Now they wake up. What do the sheep want to do? They want to eat some more. And they can't eat where they've been because they've trampled on all that. And if it's near a well or a stream, other animals and other livestock have come and trampled it. There's not going to be good food there probably. So now they've got to walk another few hours to go get more good grass for the sheep. And all day long, The shepherd is leading the sheep from one place of grass to another place of grass, walking through the wilderness, through the mountains, always being attentive, always watching out for dangers, watching out for thieves, watching out for predators, watching out for ravines that the sheep could fall in, keeping a head count. He's like, how many sheep are out there? Oh, shoot, one sheep wandered off again. Now he's got to go look around, try to find that sheep that wandered off. Meanwhile, make sure the 99 don't wander off as well. So the shepherd is always busy, always working. If a sheep strayed away, he had to find it. If he didn't find it, then he would be held accountable to the owner of the sheep and would have to make payment out of his own expenses, out of his own salary. If a sheep was sick or injured, he had to care for it. The Bible talks about shepherds carrying on their backs, carrying in their arms, sheep that were injured or sick or weak. And after spending all day out there in the wilderness, leading the sheep, caring for the sheep, watching over the sheep, then finally when evening started to come, he would bring the sheep back to the sheepfold, again, usually a cave, and put them down there, secure the sheepfold with a gate, some sort of a gate mechanism, and then he would set up his tent nearby so that he can keep an eye on the sheepfold. He doesn't get to sleep. He's got to stay up through the night, or at least be halfway awake through the night, because if he falls asleep, well, that's, robbers can come and steal the sheep. He's always got to be constantly aware, ready to defend the sheep and keep them safe. I forgot to mention, as he brought the sheep back to the sheepfold, there was a tradition where he would take his staff, the shepherd's staff that he would walk with, he would hold that over the sheepfold, and the sheep would pass under that to enter their home. And as they passed through that, the shepherd's staff, he would count them. And so there are times where God, speaking over Israel, says, I will make you pass under my staff. The idea of that God will judge us, and God will make sure that you're right before him, that everything's okay. But the shepherd, as he passed the sheep under his staff, he would be counting them, making sure that nothing was lost. And if one of the sheep was missing, well, even though it's late at night, he's got to go find it, or he's going to have to pay the damages to the owner of the sheep. And so there's an accounting that happens at the end of the day. And then, like I said, throughout the night, he can't sleep. He's got to stay up, keep watching the sheep. Jacob told Laban, like Jacob was watching his uncle Laban's sheep in order to get Rachel, and then he got Leah, and then had to work more to actually get Rachel. And he tells his uncle, he's talking about how hard he's worked for the sheep, and he's for his uncle watching the sheep, and he says, I've dealt with the cold, I've dealt with the heat, I've been out there working hard, and I've many nights lost sleep. Sleep fled from my eyes is the phrase that he uses. The main job of a shepherd is to care for the sheep, bring them the food, water, and keep them from dying, and get them back home. That's his main job. In the midst of all that, he might have to heal them, he might have to carry them, he might have to discipline them, he might have to find a sheep, but basically, get them food, get them water, keep them alive, bring them home. That's his main job, which is interesting when you think about God being our shepherd. His main job, there's a lot God does, but his main shepherding job toward us, bring us the food, bring us so we can grow, bring us the water so we're healthy, keep us safe, keep us from dying, keep us from doing something stupid, and bring us home. Keep us alive to the end. Sheep are incredibly stupid and helpless animals, and I say that with love. The website, the Savvy Farmer website, says sheep are especially special and need a little help keeping out of trouble. Now, I can talk intimately about sheep because we took care of sheep. I could say they're stupid because I've seen firsthand how stupid sheep are. When we first moved back from Romania, we lived on a farm outside of Reeseville, the big city of Reeseville, south of Beaver Dam. And we had maybe 30 sheep, 20 or so goats, and like 50 or 100 chickens, way too many chickens. The chickens were mean and smelled bad. The goats were fun. The sheep were especially special. The sheep were dirty, and they smelled bad, and they were stupid. They did, so many times. We'd wake up in the morning because we'd hear all this honking on the highway, We live right off of Highway 60. We hear, we're like, what's going on? Look out the window. Oh, the sheep got on the highway again. They somehow managed to open the gate, or like there was fencing. We found a little hole one time, and sheep are a lot smaller than they look, because there's a lot of fluff there, you know. And so there was a little hole in the fencing, and they managed to burrow under that. And one of them got out, and then the others were like, "Freedom, let's go!" And before long, they're on the highway, just walking along the highway, going on the road. They're like, wow, I really like this pavement here. This is easier to walk on than the grass. And so we had to go out, I think at the time, Isaac and Up probably came out and helped us get the sheep off the highway. And we're taking sticks and we're waving them around. We're banging pots and we're yelling at the sheep, trying to get them from killing themselves on the highway. Our sheep, there were certain poisonous plants on the farm. The sheep, if any of those poisonous plants were left there, the sheep would eat them and die. Some of them did. Well, one of them did. If they ate too much food, they would bloat up, and then they can't move, and they fall over, and now they die, which happened to one of them. The sheep, when they had babies in the colder weather, anytime when they had babies, they wouldn't really pay attention. They'd pop the baby out, and sometimes they'd trample on their baby. Or the other sheep would just not even pay attention. They're like, oh, food, let's go. And now the other sheep trampled on the baby. Many times the sheep mothers would give birth to the babies, and then if you just let them stay out there, if it doesn't trample on the baby, the lamb, it kind of rejects the lamb. And it's like, all right, I had the baby, let's go eat some food. And the lamb wanders around trying to find someone that will nurse it. So what we would have to do is when the lamb was born, we'd have to take the lamb, we'd put it in a special pen, and we'd have to go get the mother and put her in the pen as well. So the mom goes, oh, that is mine, isn't it? Sheep are not particularly smart, and they get scared easily. Cosette was, just a baby at the time, and she loved the sheep. The sheep were terrified of her. They were terrified of everything. Cosette would go out there, and she's a little toddler, and she'd be all excited, yeah, sheep, and she'd start toddling over by the sheep. They'd see her, meh, they'd run away. Everything would scare them, spook them real easily. They got diseases and infections because we had this big, beautiful pen for them. Big, beautiful pen. Sound like Trump now. We had this nice, big pen for them with nice, fresh hay everywhere. What did they want to do? They wanted to go, all of them, in the one corner where they pooped and hang out in that together. And we'd have to go out and try to yank them to go into the clean parts of the pen, but they wouldn't want to do it. And so then they'd get hoof rot and other infections because they're just hanging out where they shouldn't be. Sheep are not smart. They're very defenseless. They're very helpless. Without a shepherd, a sheep cannot survive. Other animals can find food in the wild on their own. Sheep can't. Other animals can distinguish this plant is poisonous. It smells funky. Don't eat it. Sheep can't figure that out. Other animals, you can let them loose to go graze, and they'll come back home to their stable by themselves. The sheep can't do that. They need somebody to lead them back home. They're not smart. They can't defend themselves either. They have the best they can do is they can circle around sometimes, but they don't really have this defense instinct, like buffalo and cows. They have horns, and they're big, tough animals, and they'll sometimes circle around and defend the weak. But sheep don't really have that for the most part. So they are, especially special. So is anybody offended that God calls us sheep yet? Yeah, I think God knows us pretty well. So sheep need a shepherd. Without the shepherd, the sheep will perish. They can't survive, and they need a good shepherd. They need someone so if you have a guy who's out there day after day, day and night, watching these sheep, you've got to have someone who's got good quality character. A shepherd had to be attentive and watchful, paying attention to what's going on with the sheep. A shepherd had to be tender and gentle, because there's times where God describes himself as a shepherd carrying the weak, carrying the young. Jacob, I think it was, when he left Laban and he meets Esau, and he says, we can't go, you go in front of us because I have to go slower for the weak and the young. He's not just referring to his family, he's referring to his flocks of sheep. And a shepherd would have to keep in mind that, pregnant mothers, they can't go as fast as the young teenage sheep. So they gotta care for them and be gentle and tender. A shepherd had to be brave and courageous. If you've got to face off with a lion or a wolf and defend these sheep, lay your life down, risk your life for them, you got to have a little bit of chutzpah about you, to survive that. Had to be stubborn and persistent, to be willing to be out there day after day, night after night. Stay up at night watching these sheep. To be a good shepherd, you had to be stubborn. You had to be persistent. You had to be willing to endure until the end. Psalm 95, verse 6, psalmist declared, "Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand." God is a father. He's our husband, metaphorically. Both of those are metaphors. He's also metaphorically our shepherd. He leads us. He provides food. He provides water for us. He keeps us out of danger, defends us, protects us from the enemy. Psalm 23, starting in verse 1, and I think I will just wrap up with this. "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." Charles Spurgeon said about this verse, "We have all things in abound, not because I have a good store of money in the bank, not because I have skill and wit with which to win my bread, but because the Lord is my shepherd." It doesn't matter what else you have in your life or what else you're lacking. If God is your shepherd, you lack nothing. You have everything you need, whether you have a lot of money in the bank or little, whether you have a nice brand new car or an old car that's leaking oil. Doesn't matter. If the Lord is your shepherd, you lack nothing. He will take care of you. He knows where the good grass is. He knows where the water is. There was a time where Jesse and I were living in that little gray house right next door, and some of you have heard this story. We didn't have enough money. It was very difficult. We had about a month where all we ate was bread, peanut butter, and potatoes. You could do a lot with potatoes, so I kind of liked it, and I love peanut butter. Jesse, after a month of that, was like, "I am dying. Can we get some vegetables and meat, something good?" And I was like, "I don't know. If you want that, maybe pray for it." I don't remember what I said, but she prayed for it. She's like, "Lord, give us food, give us meat and vegetables, big chunks of meat and lots of vegetables." And that's it. She prayed, and the next morning I woke up. I was leaving the house. I opened the door, and there's a box of food out on the front stoop. It was big chunks of meat and lots of vegetables. So God will provide. If he is your shepherd, you lack nothing. He will take care of you. Doesn't matter what you see on the outside or what you think you have or you don't have or what you think you need. If he's your shepherd, you can be content. He's going to take care of you. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Sheep don't lay down very often. And usually if one of our landlord's sheep, when we were watching them, if it was laying down, it meant there was a problem. It was probably sick or dead. Sheep don't naturally want to lay down. They get real fidgety. They get real nervous. They get annoyed by bugs around them, and so they get up and move around. They startle easily, so they might lay down, and then they hear a noise or see somebody, and they go, "Ah!" and they get up and move around. So for a sheep to lie down, it means that they trust the shepherd. It means the shepherd has made sure they're safe and they're good. Sheep are naturally agitated and anxious. And so here he says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures." That God brings peace to our hearts so that he takes care of us enough that if we are trusting in him, if we're resting in him, we don't have to be agitated and anxious and worried. We can lie down and rest in his presence. Where he refreshes my soul, he guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. God knows how to refresh you. He knows, you might feel burdened, you might feel overwhelmed. God is your shepherd. He knows how to refresh you, so trust him in that. Give the burdens to him. He will refresh you. He doesn't want you being overwhelmed. He doesn't want you being stressed out all the time and anxious and worried and ready to snap at everybody. He wants you to have refreshment in your heart. And so just give that to him. He's your shepherd, and follow where he leads you. Don't fight him. If you can hold on to that stress and anxiety and refuse to surrender that. And then, yeah, he's not going to refresh you because you're refusing to let him refresh you. But you give him that stress, give him the burdens, give him the anxiety, and then his refreshing comes into your life. Verse 4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Shepherds had three main tools that they would use in Bible times. They had the sling, they had the staff, and they had a rod. The sling, you can think of like King David. You guys have seen David versus Goliath. It's the sling where you put a rock in there and whip it around, and you can kill animals with that. So that the shepherds would carry a sling for a couple different purposes, to protect the sheep from animals, predators that would be after them, from thieves that would come to steal them. Also, if a sheep was wandering off in the wrong direction, he could take the sling, shoot a rock over there into the bush, and the sheep goes, whoa, what's over there? I better go back by everybody else. Then you had the rod. The rod was a short, thick wooden club with a knob on the end of it. That was used, again, to defend against thieves and predators, also used to discipline the sheep. If a shepherd had a sheep that was wandering off repeatedly and was going to get hurt or killed, then there are instances where shepherds, real-life shepherds, you don't see this in the Bible, but shepherds of the time would take the club and they would whack the sheep's leg to break the leg so that now he can't walk. Now he can't wander off on his own. The shepherd would carry the sheep. And as the shepherd carries the sheep gets comfortable with the shepherd, gets used to the shepherd. And once the leg is healed, the sheep is not going to wander off because he's going to always smell. He's going to remember the smell of the shepherd and how he felt safe there. The staff, the shepherd's staff, it was a shepherd's crook. If you can imagine, every Christmas play that you saw as a kid, and there'd be the shepherds with long staff with a hook on the end of it. That served a couple different purposes. One was just walking through the mountains. Very useful to have something, a walking stick basically. And then it had that curve on the end of it to draw sheep back, a sheep that was wandering off in the wrong spot. The shepherd, rather than go chase it down, he could take his staff and just loop it around the neck and pull it over that way. Also, very useful if the sheep jumps into a ditch or something and the shepherd is having a hard time getting it out, takes the shepherd's staff, pulls it around, wraps it around the sheep and pulls the sheep out of the ditch, gets him back safe with the rest of the fold. So it says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. It's unusual for a sheep to not be afraid. That was my experience when we were living on the farm taking care of sheep. Their natural tendency is to be afraid. So David, writing from the perspective of a sheep following his shepherd, God, for the sheep to not be afraid, it means that he's trusting completely in the shepherd. And he specifically here, he says, he connects it with the idea, I'm not afraid because your rod and your staff, they comfort me. It's good to know that God has all the tools he needs to lead you well. You're not going to surprise God with something. You won't do something one day and God goes, oh, had no idea she was going to do that. Shoot, I just can't figure this one out. God has all the tools he needs to lead you to good pasture land, to bring you to water and bring you back home. You can trust him. And because he's got everything he needs, you don't have to be afraid of anything. You can rest in him. Verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I love this picture here. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I picture this literally, that you're in an army, two armies are facing off against each other. You're in one of them. And God's like, hey, I was thinking we could eat dinner together, so let me just set up this table here in between. I know the army's over there. I know they want to kill you. I know they're launching their arrows at you, but here, we're just going to have dinner for a little bit here. And for you to trust him enough to go and eat dinner at this table in the presence of your enemies either means you're insane or he's really trustworthy. And that he's demonstrated that he'll take care of you, that you can trust him. It's this picture in my mind of complete contentment, complete serenity, complete trust, that you know God, your shepherd, so much that if he says this table is safe, it doesn't matter who's launching arrows at you, who's got a sword ready to chop your head off, because he said the table's safe, so it's safe. And you could sit at the table and just eat to your heart's content without any fear. It says, you anoint my head with oil. Practically, a shepherd would use oil over a sheep's head for a number of medicinal purposes. That there were certain infections and bug infestations that sheep could get in their ears and in their hair and stuff, that certain oils would drive the bugs out and would heal the infection. Part of a shepherd's role in caring for the sheep is to heal the sheep, just as God heals us. He heals us physically. He heals us spiritually. He anoints us with oil to remove the bugs, to heal the infestation, to heal the infections in us, to restore us. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. That when you are his sheep and he's your shepherd, you always have enough. Your cup overflows. It's this, the meaning there is that it's not just that you have a cup with a little bit of water, or it's not a dry cup, that you have so much of God, so much of what you need in that cup that is actually overflowing. That's what the Christian life should be like, is that if he's your shepherd, you've got all you need. You're good. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is the Christian life. Should be a life of peace, a life of trust in God. It's a picture of a happy sheep following his good shepherd with no fears, no worries, completely trusting in the shepherd because he knows the shepherd and the shepherd is good and the shepherd will not lead him wrong. And ultimately, a good sheep cannot lead themselves. Sheep need the shepherd. And I was thinking about it on my drive in this morning, how ridiculous it would be if a sheep thought that he knew better than the shepherd. You know, if the shepherd's trying to tell the sheep, hey, or trying to lead the sheep, there's good grass over here, there's water over here. He's trying to bring the sheep along, and the sheep's like, nah, I know where good grass is, man. I don't need to follow you. How stupid would that be? Sheep know they're helpless. Sheep know they're dumb. Just trust the shepherd. In us, we know we make mistakes. We know we're kind of dumb sometimes. We know outside of God, you're helpless. The wolves will eat you alive. So just trust the shepherd. Be with the shepherd and you're safe. Be with the shepherd and you're good. He'll lead you to good pasture. He'll lead you to water. He can take care of you. Let me share this last verse here. Isaiah 40, verse 11. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. God is a good shepherd. He cares for you. He leads you. He watches over you. He will carry you in his arms when required. And he will discipline you when required. He will defend you from the enemy when enemies come. But you have to stay next to him. You know, it says here that he carries us in his arms, carries the sheep in his arms. But the sheep has to stay there. The sheep has to stay close to his heart. You have to stay close to God. The blessings of being his sheep, the protection of being his sheep, those don't apply to you if you decide that you know better, or if you decide you're just going to go do your own thing. Then you lose out on all that. To be blessed by him, to have that relationship, the blessings of that relationship, you need to trust him and stay with him, stay close to him, and believe that he is a good shepherd and he'll take care of you. I don't have this verse in my notes, but in Philippians, Paul talks about that he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. I feel like God wants to remind us of that this morning, that he's a good shepherd. He is the one leading us. He started a good work in you and he will complete it. He will bring you to the grass. He'll bring you to the water. He'll defend you from the wolves. There is no enemy that is too big for him. There's no stretch of desert land that God is like, I don't know where there's water. No, God knows what he's doing. He knows where he's leading you. He will be faithful to complete it. What he began in you, he will complete. Amen. Jesus, thank you for being our good shepherd. Thank you for caring for us, especially special sheep, that we are often scared of dumb things. We make dumb mistakes. We go places. We wander. When you tell us to go this way, oftentimes we ignore it and we go the other way. But Lord, you are so faithful, so good, and you have all the tools, everything you need to lead us after you. Father, thank you that you began a good work in each one of us, and you're going to complete that. Lord, I pray for your presence to be on us. as we leave this place, and that we would trust you, that we would know you deeper as our shepherd, and we would trust you better. In Jesus' name.